Hello again, my name is Ernest Minu. Let's settle for the details now. Economists advise government to ensure the stimulus packages for industry goes to identifiable firms that will have good return on investment. Dr. Ibu Texin of the University of Ghana Business School was speaking on the AM show with Roland Walker.
We have some sort of data that the Ghana Statistical Service normally collects under the Integrated Business Establishment Survey. And we are looking at close to about 400,000 of such firms. So we have data. Of course, not all firms are normally captured in the census of enterprises in Ghana, but we have data. And compared to the US, which is a more formalized economy, the unfortunate thing about ours is that most of our enterprises, especially the micro ones, are unregistered, and at times they are not captured in some of these census. And so if we need to support, and it's not going to be able to get everybody on board. That is why those of us who train small enterprises make it a point to let them know that even if your business is not registered, you should make sure that you are under the umbrella of the business association that you belong, so that anytime things like this happen, and there's the need that no firms involved for the support, at least you are captured. But definitely there is some data that the government can use for any support that it wants to give. The support shouldn't go to every firm. I mean, this is support that hopefully once it's being paid back, others will also benefit. I think that the initial focus should be on small and medium enterprises that offer a sizable number of jobs, and for which currently, as we speak, there is the demand for what they produce. Because you don't have to go and support a firm that does not offer a lot of employment, that has no produce now. Otherwise, whatever support is given to them will go directly into paying wages of workers who are not productive.
Here from development economist Dr. Patrick Esumin, who called for circumspection in such supports to industry.
It's well known that small and medium enterprises form the bulk of businesses in this country. Their contribution to employment is in the order of about 80%, especially if you look at the informal sector. And to GDP, it's also quite high. More than half of our GDP comes from that sector. So their contribution is quite substantial, and targeting them is very important, because we know that a lot of them have been decimated by the crisis. The question is, I think the question what we always struggle with is exactly how to target them, and to make sure that the kind of support we are giving that will ensure that they become sustainable, and over the long term, there's some path towards formalization. I think, as my colleague has said, a big chunk is a big part of the problem is a lot of them are in the informal sector. So it's very difficult to locate them and target them. In a sense, this crisis gives us an opportunity, because the support that is being given, we notice that at the moment is going through the NBSSI, and it appears that because of the support, a lot of them are being forced to formalize by way of registering with the Registrar General Department, so which is a path to formalization. So in a sense, we have a very big opportunity to ensure that a big chunk or a sector that contributes substantially to the economy is receiving sufficient support going forward. The key questions remain exactly, whether the sort of interventions we are giving is exactly what they need. And broadly, also addressing their challenges on a wider scale, targeted loans, because the issue about credit, SMEs in this country face a myriad of problems. And I think it's important that we just don't focus only on the loan aspect and the funding aspect, but address broad-based challenges that the economy faces.
Now, let's go on to the phone lines now and speak to economist Professor Godfred Bokpin with the University of Ghana. Thank you very much, sir, for your time here on News Desk. And so you predicted that this would last for 3 years, and so government must target not less than a 3-year program if we are to do anything as far as stabilization and recovery of the economy is concerned. I first wanted to find out from you, government seeks to raise a huge chunk of the 100 million CD program from the private sector. How feasible is that?
Well, yeah, that is the challenge. I think that there are bold initiatives in the media review. The media review is a bit different from what we have been used to in the time past, both in terms of scope and length and content. But it's also, this can be understood largely because of 19. The fact that this is the best opportunity for government to give us a comprehensive view of the impact of COVID-19 on our economy and then also the response. Typically, one would have expected that it should just be 6 months, but we need government to give a signal in terms of its preparedness to contain the pandemic, particularly because we do not know when this is actually going to end. And the more it lingers, the more our recovery is also going to linger as we go along. So if you look at the document, you could see good intentions, bold largely, but the financing arrangement to translate that into actual is not convincing in the document. It's not convincing in the document. So, but I see a smart way from government in trying to look at private sector support, because there is no way government, given the expenditure rigidities, given our dwarf revenue envelope, to be able to finance the recovery plan. No, it's impossible. Why am I saying so? Even pre-pandemic level, we were living from hand to mouth, where practically every CD tax revenue we generate goes to just compensation of an interest payment. And you look at the revised target in the media review, you see compensation of employees going up slightly in response to COVID-19 compensation risk reward structure in terms of frontline workers, which has gone up a bit. But look at interest payment, almost 27 billion. Compensation, 27 billion. Your total tax revenue is less than 50 billion. So it means that even to pay interest or some part of salaries, if we are not careful, we may have to borrow. Okay, so there's no way government is going to be, and this is not, we will not change next year, we will not change 2 years from now, 3 years from now. So more importantly, to be in terms of leveraging the framework and the necessary institutional reform that makes it attractive for the private sector to also invest in such a recovery program.
What is your understanding of the private sector? Because I recall that when the government went to the Bank of Ghana to raise some money, you said that that was a good move because the international markets will not be a good place to source some of these funds from.
When we talk about private sector or private capital, it's not restricted to only the domestic market here. Okay, we are talking about the private capital broadly. And if you look at excess capital from the global north, the US, North America, Europe, and the rest of them, we are looking at how do we package ourselves in a bankable project that allows us to tap into private capital from the global north. So that is the direction also. So there's no way we can, look, if you look at the domestic financial market, there's no way we can mobilize all this money from there. But if you also look at that same plan, part of it also leverages on the private sector in Ghana. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So part of the support is also to private sector in Ghana in terms of revitalizing enterprises and all of that. That is essentially private sector. So some kind of collaboration is what we need now. And why am I saying this? Within Africa, not only Ghana, what it will take financing the recovery in Africa, we are looking at in excess of $144 billion. And the continent itself cannot even provide about 20% of that amount. And that is why there's the need for multilateral institutions to come to the aid of Africa in terms of providing cheap capital, patient capital, to enable Africa finance the recovery. Beyond that, the best helping hand we cannot find, I agree, is at the end of our own arm. How do we look within, okay, and ensure that we are also able to put something on the table from our end to finance the recovery? And this we can do without burdening the faithful few. And here is because of efficiency in the various tax handles. Why am I saying this? I'm about the informal nature of our economy.
Absolutely, they did.
Yes, but you know what? Ghana's tax effort is one of the lowest, even among our peers. Our peers meaning that they have almost similar informality in their economy with challenges that we also have. They are able to collect between 18 to 20% of their GDP into tax revenue. We are doing less than 13%. Okay, even among our peers. So that tells you that there is scope to actually generate a little bit of tax revenue without burdening the faithful few.
Okay.
This is what we have failed as a country in the last 15 years or so. Even with the rebasing also dwarfed the tax efforts largely. The essence of rebasing is also to suggest that if your economy has expanded, that has been captured that much, then you should be looking at the revenue stream from that area also and making sure that you optimize your revenue stream from that area correspondingly. That is the way to go. But as a country, we have failed over the years in greater tax compliance. This is our problem. We may not need to introduce new tax handles necessarily. But look, even if you pick VAT, okay, which we have introduced like many other countries in Sub-Saharan Africa, our VAT efficiency is one of the lowest in Sub-Saharan Africa. And it's largely because of the exemptions that we grant from politically motivated exemptions, okay, which does not benefit us broadly. These are the issues, because you see, when we compare, we say Europe is developing, US is making it. Where would you find these kind of things in their economy that much? But we allow all these kind of things in here, and we still expect what to develop.
So clearly, the issue of tax waivers is a big problem for us, and you have made the point severally how government should approach this. But you're talking about bringing in a lot of people into the fold without necessarily introducing new taxes. Now, the second phase of this program, which is the revitalization program, which you're told will be for the next 3 years, has a component in it which I'm sure would interest you, and has to do with digitization to improve the quality of our businesses. We have started with some moves. What is it that we are not doing right, and going forward you would advise government to do?
We have talked more about digitization than we have actually done. And we have not embraced digitization in our revenue administration or institutional reforms that much. And therefore, we are still using 1960s, 1970s mode of tax collection in this country, which does not help people who genuinely even want to pay the tax. The struggle they go through and all of that. Okay, so now we are told that because of interoperability, mobile money has more than doubled by 400% and all of that. But to what extent are we leveraging this same digital platform to aid tax collection and tax monitoring? That we have not done so well. And the other thing also, why we are inefficient with these things is because the more you digitize these areas, it exposes corrupt people in the system. And it's all part of the elite capture, where you have top chiefs powerful chiefs who hardly pay tax, top religious people, top politicians, top public servants, top civil servants, all over, elite capture at the top. And once it favors them, that is it. Okay, so we need to be pragmatic here, because the point is that COVID-19 has exposed the vulnerability in our system. It further dampens our ability to raise the mass revenue because of disruptions here and there. Meanwhile, at the same time, expenditure is heading up, and it's going to go up further because we are unsure when this thing is going to end. The situation is very fluid. Look, they have revised the GDP from 6.8% to 0.9%, right?
Yeah.
But it is possible by the end of this year, things might have changed. Because from the beginning of this year to end of June, the IMF, World Bank, UN Economic Commission, and all of that, they have all revised their projections more than 3 times. And that tells you how fluid the situation is. Nobody has control. We don't know what will happen next month. Exactly. Coupled with the geopolitics between US and China, which introduce additional risk in the market and uncertainty.
Yeah.
So we need to be very careful, and and again, efficiency.
Very well. And just before you go, Prof, in just a minute, there's a bit about an insurance package for unemployed people. I don't know how that comes across to you as part of the package for the revitalization program.
Yeah, this has been long overdue. In other countries, they have that. Okay, but of course, it works well on proper data, which will enable the premium determination and all of that. But I believe that it's a good starting point. It's not an end in itself. So we need to be able to look at some of these things, risk management techniques that are available that we can use to manage, because this may not be the last crisis. In fact, since recording started, the world has witnessed 15 pandemic events from the 14th century. Okay, this is the 16th one, and there's nothing to suggest it will be the last one, unless the Lord intervenes. To be able to prepare not only for this one, but for tomorrow also.
And I want you to hold the line for me, Prof, because we've been joined by Ben Boakye of ASAP. He joins us via Zoom for the other conversation, which has to do with the freebies as far as electricity is concerned. Thank you very much, Ben, for joining us. But the finance minister explained that 11.1 billion Ghana cedis earmarked is to tackle coronavirus. He also some freebies will be given. We are looking at electricity for Lifeline customers and free water for all Ghanaians for the next 6 months. Ben Boakye, you had issue with the initial 3 months that was announced by the president, which we all have enjoyed, because you say there are consequences to that. Now we are going to experience this for the rest of the year. What are your
Thanks for having me, Kojo. I think I also enjoyed the freebies. I got the rebates. Good for everybody. But the reality is that government only give what we have given it, right? And therefore, whatever government spends is either our taxes or loans that have been procured on our behalf. And with our understanding of how the energy sector operates and its challenges, we thought that it was a populist intervention, appeal to people, and not really a pragmatic approach to addressing the challenges that we do have currently. If you look at how burdened ECG is currently, they are not able to generate enough revenue. The inefficiencies still exist. The political interference is still normal and operating to actually save the public that has actually invested in that company. We have failed over a period to retool that institution to make it much more functional. So this intervention is rather going to deepen the woes of ECG.
But it's interesting you say that, because we've had the Energy Minister, Peter Mbewu. Just a minute, Mr. Boakye. We've heard from the Energy Minister, John Peter Mbewu, on how much government has set aside for this. In fact, he says that as far as the books of ECG is concerned, government even has enough to take care of its bills for the rest of the year. And we know that government is very much, according to him, is committed to this. So I'm wondering where the challenge is as far as government is concerned.
So maybe let's try to understand how this intervention has been happening. You know, government has committed to power generation, fuel supply, and that comes at a cost. So because ECG is unable to raise enough revenue from the power they sell to consumers, government intermittently has to come in to finance part of their commitment. So some of the IPPs that have been signed up, the excess capacity we've been talking about, the inefficiencies that have to be offset, government has been coming in to pay because government is the primary guarantor of the sector. So what government is doing is that when they pay for the inefficiencies that they have failed over the years to really address, then they go to ECG and say, let's net that off and put that into your books. So they continue to keep ECG inefficient. They continue to infiltrate the decision-making of ECG, and they don't want to take the liability that results from that. So if it continues like that, by the end of the year, ECG may be owing government to the tune of over 10 billion cedis, for example, because there is no way ECG is going to be able to pay for the inefficiencies that have accumulated in the energy sector as we speak. So the liabilities are sitting in the books of government currently. They offset it against ECG and becomes a debt on the books of ECG. And that is what is happening. And it's not a sustainable approach to managing the power sector. What we really need to do is to allow ECG to collect the revenue for electricity consumption and let those who can pay. And that's what we have insisted, that even if you have an intervention in this COVID times, you target the most vulnerable, the people who really need it. The way we are implementing this social intervention is regressive. For example, somebody consumes 5,000 cedis worth of electricity, and government is willing to take half of that, but only consumes 30, 20 cedis, government. So what you are saying is that the rich can continue to be richer because government will pay a significant chunk of your luxury lifestyle, of your air conditioning, of your deep freezers, but for the poor, they're only willing to pay for the bulb that they are using and the electricity, the small TV set that they have. And that is quite a regressive intervention practice, particularly in a situation where we see so much challenges with the electricity sector. So ultimately, it will come back to haunt all of us because if ECG is not able to pay its debt, it comes back to government. Government will have to...
Okay. Just hold the line briefly for me because there's a second bit of this which has to do with the energy sector reform. And when you look at the finance minister's on the revitalization aspect of the program, the very last thing he mentioned there was energy sector reform. We'll come back to talk a bit more about that, but we still have Professor Bokpin on the line. Prof, I don't know if you agree with the position of Ben Boakye that this will ultimately come to haunt us, and I don't know how this will affect generally our debt stock and our finances going forward.
Yes. I think largely I agree with Ben Boakye. I think the interventions that were seen earlier were not efficient. That puts more money in the pocket of the rich who could consume more. That government attempt to undo that to some extent by giving the 6 months or so to lifeline consumers. Perhaps with all the challenge, they are trying to address that. I see they have responded to a large extent to Mbwachi's concern, because when they did the earlier interventions, I agree with ASAP 100%, but sometimes because of the lack of data, it's very difficult to do the kind of targeting. But I think going forward, we cannot improve on that, because the subsidy the government does ultimately is loaded onto the debt stock, because government can't generate the revenue in another way in order to go and pay for that. And it's not so difficult. Look, my good friend, let me tell you something. Government in managing crisis, we there isn't enough innovation across. Let me give you an example. And I'm saying this because Mr. Benboachi is an authority in that area. Between 2012 and 2015, when we encountered the energy crisis, you could see the direct demonstrable link between our attempt to resolve the crisis and that. So if you look at the rate of debt accumulation between 2013 and 2014, we added almost 50% of the entire debt stock to the existing between that period. And then if you look at the rate of debt accumulation between 2014 and 2015, it's also that high. Okay, so we load it. And today, I'm sure Ben will tell you the level of inefficiency with the way we try to resolve the energy sector crisis, which is coming to haunt us today. I believe part of that is what Dr. Benboachi is talking about. Okay, because we have been largely inefficient, and it comes back to bite us. We are paying today millions of dollars for those excess capacity and all. Where do you find this in any serious country today?
And so, Prof, I'll just want you to give me a straightforward answer to this. Looking at all of the interventions that government has already put in place, announced what it intends to do with a 100 million program, would you say that this intervention of free electricity is unnecessary and that we could have done without it?
Lifeline consumers for a good number of people in our city, if there is alternative way of easing the adverse distributional effect of COVID-19 on them, then I would say that then we can take this out. So if we take this out, what is the alternative in reaching out to them? Because the point is that we have disproportionate effect when it comes to the harmful effect of COVID-19, because the vulnerable, the lower end of society, people with lower skill in less premium jobs are affected more compared to those in the higher end of the ladder. And therefore, when you are doing the intervention, you want to be able to do something that targets those at the lower end. I haven't seen that alternative, and to that extent, we will say that okay, for lifeline consumers, I think we can accommodate that. Okay. ASAP will be able to give us, in terms of the statistics, a lot more on that, because he is an authority in that area. They are able to give us the statistics, lifeline consumers, and then the other consumers who enjoy the 50%. Maybe I haven't read the document well, but I didn't see government modeling the same intervention they did earlier. I saw for lifeline consumers, and maybe for water, maybe for everyone or so. Yeah, but we can check that. Yeah.
Very well. Prof, thank you so much on News Desk. That's Professor Godfred Bokpin. He's an economist and a finance expert as well with the University of Ghana. Let's go back to Zoom and speak to Benboachi. Energy sector reforms. We've heard this a million times when it comes to budget presentation, State of the Nation address, anything as far as the energy sector is concerned. Government wants to do a lot more this time with the program. What are your expectations?
I think the reforms keep being announced, but practically not much has been done. In the past couple of years, we've had various commitments to actually reform the sector. You remember what happened with PDS and our inability to actually introduce private sector into power distribution, which ultimately would have ensured that we reformed the electricity sector. The delivery of speeches are becoming more than the actions that ought to be taken, and that's a worry as an institution. And I think we just at the point where we can now agree the specific direction that we want to go. And most of these things have to be much more constructive than just writing it and delivering it in the direction that we think that the energy sector ought to go. Because we always see the interventions announced and they don't deliver the kind of retooling that we expect the energy sector to actually be. So I hope this is a more serious approach to really doing that, and not the usual rhetoric of reform the energy sector and nothing gets done.
Thank you very much. Ben Boache is Executive Director of ASAP, and he joined us with some analysis on the announcement made by government as far as the freebies are concerned, free electricity supply and water for lifeline consumers as far as electricity is concerned, and water as well. And so that'll be it. We'll bring you some more on the mid-year budget review in our subsequent bulletins, but this is your election headquarters. Now, Chairman of the governing NPP, Freddie Blay, has objected to calls for disciplinary action against MP for a constituency, Howard Kumsin, over her involvement in the shooting incident at the Septic Christ at Kaswa on Monday. Mr. Blay mounted a strong defense for the Special Development Minister, arguing that Madam Kumsin was rather the victim in that situation.
If you listen exactly, I believe you had reporters on the scene. And based on the report from your own reporters and some of our membership and independent bystanders of what took place, there was a surge of people, some on motorbikes, and rushing at the MP who was going around to inspect what was going on, encourage people say you shouldn't have been there, and so forth. Encourage members of the party and the public, and even NDC people to patronize the registration exercise. And then before she was there, there were people surging around and on motorbike threatening. She felt threatened. It was a lady. The story that she's saying, which I have no reason to believe otherwise. And I felt very threatened. He was defending herself. And he didn't shoot at anybody. He fired a warning shot to keep people, to ward off the people who were coming too close. Some, I'm told, one of them used a motorbike to hit a car that was in it. That's what she says. That's what some people are saying. And check from your own reporters what took place. I think it's over-exaggerated. And people are over-exaggerated. That's what I'm saying.
I see.
Definitely. She has agreed that
she has
admitted that he fired and take care for her word. And if you are talking about as if there was bullets all over, like there was a big fight between individuals at that spot or not, there haven't been any report, any casualties. But it's unfortunate if there was an array of bullets flying up and down, but I don't believe that's what happened. What he says is that people on bikes were threatening her, and she felt her life was threatened, and that's what she did. It's unfortunate that such a situation took place, but thank God, not any individual or had any bullet.
I mean, her action disrupted the whole registration exercise.
I am not saying her action. Those who threatened her also should be blamed. Indeed, they should be more blamed for what happened. Where are they from? Are they going to register
MP is a victim in this case?
He was a victim, definitely, in this instance. But be it as it shouldn't have been, a situation shouldn't have been created like that. In this country, you could imagine if you feel threatened, you are a woman, and you don't have people around you who could easily save the situation. You need to protect yourself. That's what I've been told, and I have no reason to believe otherwise.
Now, the Electoral Commission has extended a list of specialized groups of citizens to participate in the ongoing voters registration exercise. Now, already applicants who are 50 years and above can visit any of the EC's district offices across the country to register for their voters' ID card. And beginning this Saturday, the list has also been extended to include health workers and all categories. Now, once they're able to show proof of identification to registration officials assigned to the various district offices of the Commission, with the aim of assisting the various categories of persons to go through with the exercise. Let's go on to the line now, and We're joined by Dr. Serebo Kwaku, who is the Director of Electoral Services for the Electoral Commission. And thank you very much, sir, for your time here on News Desk. Why this decision? Are we running out of time?
You are my nephew and you are not able to mention my name well.
Forgive me. Kweku, yes, sir. Forgive me.
Yeah, thank you very much. You know, the main purpose of establishing a district registration centers were to help reduce the tension and the congestion at the various polling stations. And because of that, we wanted to help the vulnerable groups so that the hassle and bustle at the centers will be avoided by them. Mm-hmm. So we initially started by saying that we were covering people who were 60 years plus, people who are with disability, and people who are in advanced pregnancy and lactating mothers. Mm. Now, almost all of them, and the queues at the districts are very low, but as we continue to experience some queues at the decision centers. Okay. So we have said that then let us bring to 50 years plus. So we are now including those who are 50 years plus, and the people, Ghana Health Service staff, because they are also helping us, and because of the COVID, they are also busy. Okay. So we want them to avoid the queues, and also the security services. Mm-hmm. They are also helping us at the various centers. So we want to register. So we have extended it to cover people who are 50 years plus, the military, the security services, and Ghana Health staff.
But did you say that there are still queues at the various registration centers? Because our monitoring does not suggest so. The few places we've been, we have seen that the queues have reduced significantly.
Yes, they have reduced. But if you go to Kaswam, Ashama, the queues are still there. Mm.
And so for these new persons that have been added to the category of people who can go to the offices to register, where exactly do you have? I'm sure you have all your offices all across the country. All they need to do is to just walk in there, show proof of identification, and then go through the process.
You have just answered the question. So what you are saying is that we have 267 district offices across the country. If you are within such district, you don't cross your boundaries. Mm. So if you are in district A, you don't have to go to district B to register. Okay. You register in the district where you are a resident. So if you go there, you go straight through the processes of identification with a Ghana card, the passport, or through guarantors. Mm. If you go there, and you should be able to tell us exactly where your polling station is. Because if this has about 120 polling stations, and if you don't give it the right direction, you'll be assigned to the wrong polling station and you will suffer for that. Mm. So before you go there, you should be sure of where you want to go register, and you should be registered within. As somebody may challenge you today or do an exhibition, they may object to it.
But what if to go to the regular polling stations, wouldn't I be given some exemption or be treated as priority?
We are giving preferential treatment when you belong to these categories, but not the 50-year people. Okay. It is the 60 plus, the advanced pregnant people, the people with disability. When they go there, there is a national convention that we don't allow such people to join the queue. Mm. And also we also give attention to people with high positions like president, former president, the paramount chiefs, and the rest. When they go, the chiefs and they don't also join the queue.
Very well. Thank you very much, Dr. Serebo Kwaku, for joining us on News Desk. We'll be coming to you later for some more as far as the registration process is concerned, to know the data and how much you've been able to register. You're watching News Desk with me, Ernest Minu. We're taking a short break. When we return, Charles Aite is standing by with the latest from the world of business. Stay with us.
Hello everyone, it's time for business with me, Charles Aite. Let's begin with some developing story at Kwame Nkrumah Circle where tension is simmering as traders there clash against each other over the reopening of shops belonging to some foreign retail traders. Of course, we've been there, we've reported the situation, and we got in touch with the president of GUTA, Dr. Joseph Obin, who is calling for calm amid the tension.
Shops nationwide have been called off. I'm calling it off because the trade minister have talked to the leadership yesterday, and they have assured that the task force will go by the road given to them. The exercise is going to go all over the country. So I want that understanding to be clear. So it's not an enmity that is here between the circle people and the rest of the traders. The trading community is embedded with this problem, and we need it solved. Now, if you look at what is going on, if care is not taken, a great mayhem is going to be falling on this country. Not in this time that we are fighting COVID, not in this time that we are going for elections. If the law is there, the law should be seen to be working. It's as simple as that. And I'm pleading that the guys here in Circle, they are all brothers, they are all Ghanaians. They shouldn't be divided by any foreign interest. If the law works, nobody will fight.
Subsequent bulletins. But away from that, former Finance Minister Seth Terkper has described the mid-year budget estimate as disappointing. Ken Ofori-Atta is seeking parliamentary approval for an additional 11.8 billion cedis to fund additional expenditure. But speaking to Joy Business, Seth Terkper laments the presentation made no mention of where these expenditures will be situated.
I think we are seeing a phenomenon where unlike 2016, he spoke about the contracts. I think we'll have time to look at these things in detail.
Exactly.
Yes. But we are going to, I think we should be prepared. We are going into 2021 without doubt that the deficit is going to be in excess, no matter what we are told. It's going to be around 12-13% from the figures. Now, my other quick take is, even if you look at appropriation, there's only one line that tells us, you know, in the supplementary, 11 billion. There's no details. I haven't seen it. What you see are long details on roads, the traditional areas, you know, and other areas of promises. What we would have expected, given the priority of COVID, is, and if we are going to be borrowing some more,
Well, so that's it for business with me, Charles Aite.
And you're still here on News Desk with me, and it's been a time now to talk tech. And Kobe Spike Nkuma is here with the latest. Hello, Kobe.
Hi.
So, what's up in the world of technology?
So, Facebook is promising cheaper internet in Africa.
Okay.
Now, this is interesting.
I read the story yesterday. I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, it is. We want internet, like cheap internet. Apparently, sub-Saharan Africa accounts for some of the most expensive data costs in the world. And Facebook, well, obviously, because they run on the internet, their business runs on the internet, and they realize that most of the data that people consume is on Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp, which are their platforms. So they're looking at investing a lot of money into Africa to get as cheaper internet. Now, they've already started this in other countries in Africa, Uganda and Nigeria, and they're promising that it's going to be rolling out to other countries in Africa.
I'm just wondering how this is going to really work, like how practical this is. Because, yes, you're going to invest in all the fiber optics and all the infrastructure. Then what is going to translate into how much I get from my service provider?
Well, you know, the more access we have, the cheaper the internet cost. Internet cost is actually expensive because the cost of implementing internet, infrastructure for us to access internet is very high. Because let's say in certain parts of the world, in Ghana, for instance, you can't get very fast internet in certain places. For them to kind of put internet mass, like all that infrastructure there, when not a lot of people will be using it. Where it matters most, and then they're getting the money's worth. But if Facebook's whole idea is let's make it available for everyone, and by so doing, it will reduce the cost.
I think it makes sense because we have a lot of people here who use Facebook and all their platforms. What's more in the world of tech?
Yeah, you know, there's been serious trouble with TikTok in the world because it's from China.
Okay.
And, India
I didn't know that.
Oh, you didn't know? You know?
No, I didn't know that.
So India's banned TikTok, and most countries, USA is actually looking to ban it. And Facebook, once again, who own Instagram, are trying out their own TikTok alternative. Reason being that if people are not going to be on TikTok,
everyone around for their money.
And so unfortunately for TikTok, there may be a competitor. And I mean, Facebook has done this to Snapchat before, so it's not surprising that they're going to do the same thing to TikTok by creating their own reels, as they call it, for Instagram, which is going to allow creators to create TikTok-like content on Instagram.
I see.
Yeah.
Very interesting there. Let's see how all of that goes. Thank you very much, Kobe, for bringing us the latest in the world of technology. And you should be looking out for all of those things. Up next is sports, and George is standing by. Stay with us. George Arthur Jr. is here with the latest in sports. And George, Liverpool, thought that we didn't have it yesterday. I wanted to talk about that coronavirus and all the situation we find ourselves will sort of limit the celebration. But look, I like how they went about it.
Even what you saw was probably 10% of what would have happened.
I am very much sure about that.
It would have been dangerous, it would have been interesting, it would have been lovely.
The videos,
I like the energy there.
Charlie,
yes,
super.
Yeah, I can't blame them. But Twitter is buzzing this morning because
there's controversy.
Because the captain of Liverpool has been adjudged the PFA Player of the Year.
And what are people saying about
and that means that he's the best player of the English Premier League, you know, for the 2019-2020 season. A lot of pundits...
But he's not the best player for Liverpool.
Yes, I'll come to that.
Okay.
So a lot of pundits and fans don't agree.
Okay.
They think that Kevin De Bruyne of Manchester City had a far better season because if you look at the stats, he's got 11 goals, he's got 19 assists, 4 goals. But then the argument is, okay, Kevin De Bruyne, why don't you win the Premier League so we can talk about you in that light? But remember that Man City won it last season, and last season it didn't go to him, Kevin De Bruyne. When he came up against Mohamed Salah, it went to Salah, who hadn't won the Premier League. There's a bit of emotion pouring out for the player Kevin De Bruyne, the fact that the English Premier League have failed to acknowledge him and give him what he deserves because he has played well.
But has it always been the criteria that once you left the club, then it means that necessarily
once you win it, it helps you. It helps the argument.
Okay.
Because if you're the best player, you must be the best team.
It improves your chances.
Yes, it improves your chances. So someone from Liverpool had to win this one.
Okay.
So let's go to Liverpool. Who is Liverpool's best player? Certainly not
the captain.
Yeah. No. The best player is Sadio Mane. So this is it. Within the Liverpool camp, they are divided over why give it to Henderson and not Sadio Mane. In the outside circle, why didn't you give it to Kevin De Bruyne? And there are real issues about how the voting went. We'll just have a look at the voting right now. Because if you look at the voting trend, Marcus Rashford of Manchester United was ahead of Sadio Mane. I don't know how that happens. Look at it. Number 1, Jordan Henderson. Number 2, Kevin De Bruyne. Number 3, Marcus Rashford. Number 4, Virgil van Dijk. Oh, number 5 is Sadio Mane. I mean,
very interesting how this looks now. So,
so I don't know what goes into that one, but there are some journalists voting that. Okay, so let's do. If you were a sports journalist and you were a Accra Hearts fan, I should think that you wouldn't vote for Kumasi Asante Kotoko players.
Yeah, it's only,
if you're being genuine, it's
rational.
fine.
Yeah,
and we see that in the Ballon d'Or and all the other ones, of course.
Absolutely.
We've had journalists in Ghana who have been on, I think Gary Al-Smith, Michael Utieji have been on this a couple of times. But look, if there's Didi Ayu or there's Asamoah Gyan,
definitely vote for them.
Let me give that to it.
Oh, but you see, when you know that sometimes some of these people are put there just for shaggy reasons, and you know your vote will count for anything.
But you saw
you have to be rational about
the way the voting was going. Some said it's because Marcus Rashford was advocating for food and all of that. That's why he's in there. Because how can Marcus Rashford, play on footballing reasons?
Too bad that this is coming up when after 30 years you lift a trophy and then
but it's
you have to deal with this. But
there have been years like that anyway. So it's just one of those things.
Thank you very much, George. But that'll be it for News Desk. Many thanks to our company through the week. We'll be back same time next week. Do make a time with us. But at midday, we have more stories for you. You can log on to myjournline.com as well. I'm Ernest Mina. Good morning.